Hello and welcome to another scene for the Living World of Darkness Changeling the Dreaming 20th edition venue. And today's scene takes place outside or at Terranar's library, where well, you tell me what you're doing, Charles.
Well, Kararis, keeper of the Diamond Word, has made a request to go into the library of Taranar. It's second time in the same month that he's made this trip. It's quite a ways out from New York City proper, and quite a bit of hiking actually has to be done in order to get up to the right place. But before long, he finds himself at the gates. It's pretty simple for him to get back into the library. He managed to do so the first time. He's able to get there again. And this time, at least, he doesn't necessarily need someone to guide him how to get through the halls. He remembers well enough how to get there. Excuse me. But they probably still send at least an escort to go after him, just for propriety's sake. Either way, he makes his way into the library, and he greets the librarian. Says, no, I know where I'm going for this one. And he makes his way through the books, going down deeper and deeper and deeper into the depths of the sections. Until finally he finds himself back at that place where the books are old, very old. Their covers are almost primal, like just pure slabs of bark from trees just ripped off and bound together with string, and just slates of wood carvings. But they're still books. They still are things that contain nothing but language of the universe. Within each of them, worlds, entire worlds and stories. And finally, he reaches the same place that he was at before. He leans to the books and whispers to them. Could you do me a favor and see if you could bring the one who I was speaking to last time I was here?
Perception alertness.
Mm-hmm. So let me make sure what my my alertness actually is before I roll my dice. I thought.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. 8 dice. 8. 8. 8. Oh, damn. Attention to detail work on this?
Uh,
No, probably not. Well, one way or
I mean,
another,
you
it's
know, I don't think you need it. You still have like one, two, three, four, what, four
four.
successes? Yeah.
4 successes.
Yeah, that's really good listening
Mm-hmm.
skills. Um, from quite a close distance, you suddenly hear wheeling, just kind of pop into being. The sound
Mm-hmm.
of wheels on an aluminum book cart,
Mm-hmm.
and attempting to look nonchalant as he reshelves books is the somewhat familiar, though probably slightly changing face of the person you met last time.
Mm-hmm. One whose name I'm not quite sure of, but has quite a few. Charles sort of smiles, and he reaches into one of his pockets. Ah, glad to run into you again. I found something of yours. He pulls out the keys with the double intertwined infinity symbols as the keychain itself.
Oh, he looks up from his book cart and gives Charles a pleasant smile. Well, thanks. I've been looking for those.
Charles hands them over. It was the rhododendrons.
Ah, I always was a sucker for a flower with an ominous meaning.
Indeed, they were. Oh, I wanted to talk. You'd left me with last time we chatted. You had mentioned that if I were to meet the individual in the books, I should have some questions, or at least have an idea of what I enjoyed more, or what I appreciated most about this place than I did about out Arcadia. I wanted to run that by you a bit, see what you thought. There's that sort of smile, like I know I'm still playing the game with you. Might as well, sort of thing.
You want to ensure that when you run across this very clever and very old individual, that you make a good impression. So you're going to run it by me first.
He shrugs. Well, it's good to get feedback, wouldn't you say?
I've never bothered with it personally, but
Well, true. I think with our ears, it's a little sensitive, especially when the mic gets a bit too close.
Well, you have me pegged. For you, I'll make this very generous exception and listen to what you have to say, and maybe even listen to some of your questions as well.
Well, I'd given a lot of thought.
Dangerous.
Thoughts are indeed dangerous. It's amazing where they can lead you.
Smack dab into a fucking tree.
I actually saw the dent in that tree. Now that I know the story, it has a little more meaning to it.
Does that meaning that my friend is a fucking idiot? Because I've come to that conclusion myself.
That may be true, but at the same time, it's interesting. Because at the same time, it's the symbol of a story, much like these books are. Every book's a tree. Tree taken down with words and worlds trapped within them. That tree didn't need to be cut down, but it contains a story.
Metaphors.
Metaphors. But I will say it took me a while. I couldn't quite figure out what I liked about here. Not too long after we had parted our ways, I went into the deep dreaming. At least I think I did. I don't really remember much. But I know with certainty. I know with absolute certainty when I did come back, I did it because I chose to. I did it because in the end I knew something. I don't remember what it was, but it stuck with me. Why did I make the choice to come back? I was so close to home. I know it. I know for a fact. I heard the stars singing closer than they ever sung before. It's like a distant dream, really, these days now, when I think back on it, but I know for certain that despite I had it, it was close. I was close to what I thought was home. I chose to come back.
So, is this place your home, or is it simply a place you're stuck in? Are you homeless or transient?
Someone told me that I had to learn how to make this place my home.
If people tell you things, doesn't mean that you're going to learn from them.
That's true. But sometimes it's wonderful to get the perspective. And at the death of my friend and certain other things, I'm realizing that I can't go back to the way things were. I'm never going to be in Arcadia ever again. It's not home anymore. I left it. Sort of forced it the first time, but forced to the first time, but I left still willingly of my choice. And the second time I left it again, willingly of my own choice. And this time, as far as I know, no coercion, no threat to my life or anything along those lines.
Hmm. It does leave one with some questions of whether or not the temptation to stay was great enough.
It is a good question. Who knows? Maybe we'll find that. Maybe that tool will be presented to me again and maybe I'll figure it out. But I did, not too long after, figure out what I enjoyed. What I like about this place more than Arcadia. Something I'm certain about.
Ooh, do tell.
It started at an art show. And more specifically, it started around these 3 planks of wood assembled in this pattern, and there was just this question of what this was supposed to represent.
Mm-hmm.
Myself and someone I commissioned to well, after she stopped trying to beat up the vehicle of my deceased friend, asked to restore it.
Mm-hmm.
She was there, and we met someone else, but they got into a discussion about I don't remember the exact words that were used, sadly. But I want to say it was about the integrity of an individual. It was definitely about relationships of what makes what makes a relationship, what sacrifices you make with it. And I had experienced debates before. I had experienced these things and relished. I relish debate. I live for it. It breathes in me. It is me. It's debate. It's communication. It's all these things.
Mm-hmm.
But at that moment, something strange was happening. I was paying more attention to them. I wasn't interjecting. And I was listening to them. Stories untold between the two of them of why they had come to these conclusions, what these perspectives were, how it danced. I knew this dance. I knew this beauty in front of me. And yet, for some reason, there was something more to it. I wasn't sure what it was. Why was this conversation that I had heard so many times different than the other debates I'd ever heard, even during my time here? I didn't get that answer that night. That finally all fell into place when I spoke with someone I consider a friend.
Another friend, or did you learn to talk to the dead?
Another friend.
That's good.
I don't think I'm going to be very free with that word. But definitely a friend.
If you don't mind me asking, why don't you want to be free with that word? Is it because it hurts, or is it because you just are afraid to let people in because there's a sort of difference.
I think it's because I know the full value of it and what that means.
Hmm. Do you think others fall short of being friends or yourself?
Maybe a little both. Maybe I don't know entirely how to be, despite knowing it fully to its capacity now, that perhaps I can never fully live up to it, or I wonder if others can. It's a risk one way or another.
So sorry for interrupting your story, but please continue.
I don't know. It's good questions. I'm sure something he would be asking me too. He says with that smile again. Well, we were having a discussion, and we had reached a moment where she had been giving her opinion on something. And I had given my own bit of a discourse. We were talking about it was something that bothered her. I'll keep that secret at the very least. It was something that bothered her. And when I asked her about it, she lied, tried to sidestep it. And it was in that moment I understood what it was. Because we all lie from time to time. We pretend to be people we're not. We say things to make ourselves look good. We make promises, although those that make promises should probably better well keep them. But we say things, and sometimes we exaggerate. We lie. But when she lied, it was more potent, more real than any puka lie. It was that it that's what they embody. And it brought me back to that conversation, and I realized what it was. There's something genuine about humanity. Something more solid, more tangible, more real. We are aspects, dreams of these things. And yes, we lie, we can dream, we can laugh, we can cry, we can love. There's a little bit of a disdain in that term there. But do we really feel? Do we really embody these things, or are we telling the tales of these things? Does a story make it any less real? I don't think so. But at the same time, that lie and that debate was more full bodied than anything else I had experienced. Maybe for the first time, I was finally paying attention. I wasn't caught up in whatever it was of my own superiority or something. But it was the genuineness. And I began to connect it into other experiences I had seen with humanity, the sorrow. The parents who had lost their daughter, even though they had never known what all that she truly was, their sorrow. More real and genuine, tragic and heart wrenching than any tears shed. A tragedy of one of ours. There's something more to humanity when it comes to their emotions, their dreams, their desires. I don't know what it is, but everything else in Arcadia is pale against it. It's just so strange because the colors are so bright and beautiful. Everything else is so gray, and yet this thing, this genuineness of their anger, of their hate, of their love, of their sorrow, and all these things fill volumes that Arcadia never could.
Hmm. He has given several raised eyebrows during this conversation. um, so, what about you in the grand scheme of this thing that you appreciate more about this world than Arcadia? Have you found yourself trying to adopt any of these values, the sincerity, this embracing of what's real? Or are you doing the whole like show?
To be honest, I don't know how. I don't know if I can. And that troubles me in a way. Am I divorced from that? Am I forever set apart from this genuineness?
Well, I mean, everybody can grow and change. Even even stubborn people change. I mean, Fuzzlewig, he was all about the Dewey Decimal System when he first got here, and now it's pretty much guys put the books away before I fucking brain you.
Dice. Oh. Oh. Would you prefer I call you Dice? Or prefer that other people call you Dice and I call you something else?
You can
Then
call me
again,
Dice.
well, I could call you Cararis. After all, you've proven that you can be me quite well.
Now, what's being used? Fairly simple since you're still in that sort of starter kit sort of mentality. It's all a matter of just being very oversimplified and very true to
Charles
life.
raises an eyebrow at that.
Yeah, I mean, he does look kind of like a very young surfer type.
Yeah, it's
Kind
being
of,
very oversimplified. It's like, simplified? How fucking dare you? But he is going to mm.
look, I will give you the OOC explanation for this after the scene.
Oh, I
Okay.
know, I know. It's totally fine. But that's just Charles's reaction. Is like, what?
Oh, I figured he'd be more upset with him calling him a starter kit.
Yeah, that. Well, don't get me wrong. That's there. mm.
I mean, you're here, living life, aging, working on the whole grand scheme of all could end someday. And I mean, have you ever taken a look at like humans that are dying? Humans that know they're going to die. Like they know they have a year to live. Yes, no?
Yeah, I know. Charles shakes his head.
Okay. Here's this amazing thing that happens within humanity. They know they're going to die. They know their times are coming and it's going to just end. And Some delve into despair and bury themselves in a cave, and they seem to live much shorter lives when they allow themselves to despair. And then there are those who, despite their terminal prognosis, decide, well, if it's a short time I've got, then I'm going to make the gosh darn most of it. So, are you pulling yourself up by being so stingy with the word friend? And, I mean, sorry, but you're basic. Or are you going out there and carping that damn, he says, butchering Latin?
My God.
To the keeper of
This
the diamond
monster.
word.
I was willing to forgive him everything else, but this is too far.
Oh, just wait,
Mm.
Charles. But you can either carpy that damn, or you can bury yourself up to your neck in your sorrows and all the things you won't get to do because you don't have all the time you thought you would. The funny thing is, those people who are out doing these crazy things, living life like tomorrow isn't a given, somehow end up with more tomorrows than the people who put themselves in that nice little padded box. I see I've rendered you speechless.
I'm just considering the fact that what you're saying is I'm not living.
Are you? Do you have a good example of living?
Charles has a pretty big frown at that point.
I'm going to judge by your expression that you don't know the answer to this.
It's hard to tell when this is my first time. I think,
Now, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to interrupt you here. Nobody who's actually living questions whether or not they're living.
hmm.
So if you don't know, I do.
Sounds like I'm going to be having a very rough conversation with this individual when I finally meet them.
Eh. I can't see how this lovely back and forth between the two of us could ever be misconstrued as tough, even as the training grounds it is. These are softball questions. Very simple. The Your approach to life. I mean, there are people who could live 100 years and never live a GD day of it. And those kind of people are just kind of taking up space from those other more vivacious individuals. You could live each day as if there is no tomorrow, or live each day as though you've got 1,000,000 years. How would you prefer to live?
All I've ever known is how to live my life as though all I've had is 1,000,000 years or an eternity. But I don't have that anymore. It's not what I have. I have days. weeks, years. Would I like eternity again? Maybe so. But, you know, the way you describe it, living as though I have nothing but days left,
Continue.
might be worth the experience.
It definitely is. It does trouble me a bit that you count in days and he just kind of like looks at you and does this thing where he kind of like licks his thumb, holds it up in the air, then licks it again to like taste the air he hit on
Mhm.
his thumb. Very weird gesture. I don't know. Something tastes off about you. You haven't aged a day since I last saw you.
Ah. The last thing my friend gave me.
Was it?
No, no, it wasn't the last thing. Wasn't the last thing, no. You know, when she gave it to me, when she gave this to me, she gave it to me with a threat.
Oh,
It was something I had said once to her. We were so cruel to each other. And yet, still at the same time, we found that we were find afterwards that even the same, we were still friends. You know, this would be so much easier if I knew your true name. Throwing those words right back to me when I was suffering.
he's like making kind of a somewhere between shocked and disgusted face.
Mm-hmm.
It's a real special bond you got there, buddy.
Hmm. It was
So
the
the
ugliness of it, I think.
the ugliness of the fairiness or the ugliness of just friendship in general.
Maybe a bit of both.
So non-committal with your answers.
Well, maybe because it's hard to tell with this for me. There's too much. There's all these new things, new experiences, new perceptions that are wonderful to have, but at the same time hurt. They they all come into this place having been something that I've never been. And are so used to being these things altruistic, just happy, sad. They have these things in a sense of self. They forget who they are. They forget everything of who they are, and they remember just small fragments of it. And yet, at the same time, now that I look around at them, I look at them and I see that they somehow are more real than me.
It's a terrible dilemma you find yourself in. Thrust into the bicycle course of humanity with nary a training wheel in your past. He is not the eloquent speaker.
No. You know, the worst part is that when I first got here, despite everything, I felt like I knew exactly who and what I was. I was Kararis, keeper of the diamond word. I am Kararis, keeper of the diamond word. No, I was certain of that. I knew where I'd come from. I knew what I was. I knew exactly what I was in. This this prison of flesh and meat and dying cells. And once this thing ends, I don't know how long it's going to last. A year, 10 years, maybe a minute more. But as soon as it's over, I'm going to be dying again. I'm going to feel every last bit of this body dying and withering away. And now, I'm not sure who or what I am exactly. I can't go home. I'm not going home. Or what I thought was home. I'm lost something wonderful, something precious and beautiful, and it took me a week before I realized what I had lost. I didn't have it anymore. I go driving, and I can't drive for the life of me, and yet I don't call upon myself, I call upon. And he sort of holds up his hands as though, like, to try and show, like, look at my hand, this sort of thing.
He does that sort of like cringe back, like, oh, it's a crazy person.
Yeah. Call upon. I. For the first time, I'm confused. I'm. When I tried to find when I finally understood the true meaning of friendship, it came that what friendship truly was. It came to me so easily. It just came crashing through. It changed everything the way I saw what it was. The word wasn't just this thing of a definition that you shaped and twisted. There was something more. It was solid. It was pure. It was genuine. And now I don't know what I am. I'm Kararis, keeper of the diamond word, and I don't know who I am. What I am. I know my true name, and yet at the same time, when I think it to myself, it's empty.
Hmm. So he just kind of like gives a sort of confused squint at Charles. What you're saying is somebody kicked over your Legos. What you have is this built thing, this sculpture of your efforts of you. And being here sort of not only knocked over that tower, but you find yourself barefoot in the dark, treading on every single one of them.
You know, that's as that's a good enough analogy for what I can say that I'm feeling at this moment.
This is a good thing. See, so many people look at these things, these Lego kits, and they'll pull out the little booklets and they sculpt out something very specific. Uh, I made this rocket ship. Aren't I grand? And then they have this thing on display, this rocket ship I made. And when that fucking thing, says cussing for the first time, is knocked over, you're treading on those Legos and kicking crucial pieces under furniture never to be seen again. You are either left with debris or an opportunity. You can either gather all of them up and say this is an incomplete set and therefore intrinsically valueless, or you can realize that what you have are tools to create and make something that isn't a rocket ship. Somebody's been kicking some of your Legos around. The thing's been knocked down. You don't have the instruction manual. Build something that isn't a rocket ship.
You know, another analogy that I think it same means the same thing is what I have is the opportunity to do something that never was, never was possible. I have the opportunity to redefine myself.
You do. And I think I can help you, he says. And he reaches onto his cart
Mhm.
and he pulls out a book. The blank book. The cover has no words, no title. He flips open the book. The pages are empty.
Mhm.
And then, with a flourish, he slams it down as hard as he can in front of Charles. Grabs a pen from who knows where the fuck he's pulled this pen from, and writes CHARARIS. Let me see if that's worth anything.
I'll have to spell that out later.
It's Chararis.
Chararis. That is worth something. That's at least, well, I don't know what his difficulty was on that, but there's a few successes there.
Mm-hmm. Just trying to count the ones, so two ones, but there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 successes. So 4 successes. Mm. So, sorry, I am looking to see how I want to split those up. When did I say it was again? 4?
You said 4 successes, yes.
Okay. So, he starts to hold on. I need to double check something. Okay. Then he flips open a page, starts to write some things down, but he brings the journal up.
Mm.
So you can't see the things he's writing. But he like glances up from the journal every now and then.
Mm-hmm.
There we go.
Hmm.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. Okay. That's not even counting that is a significant bunk.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's
a lot.
That's a lot. Yeah, at least 6, or if at least one bunk, that's 7. Jesus.
Yep.
So
7 plus 4 is enough.
enough.
Well, you end up naming 5.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm gonna be nice and not make this permanent. um. Anyways, so he continues writing these things, and you'll start to feel more sincere. Um, you'll start to feel warmth as he continues writing. Memories of Charles's childhood seem a little less muddled, or at the very least accessible without that Rolodex. Like they've been something that have just been a part of you this entire time. Perhaps Charles was also eternal, because it doesn't feel like Polaris is necessarily fading. It's just kind of shifting. And he finishes scribbling some things inside. And he goes back to the front cover, and under Chiraris, he writes, "Sincere Friend" is the subtitle. And then he slides it forward. You should write your story down. Come visit me in a week or 2. Enjoy your training wheels.
And Charles Chiraris takes the book into his hands. He stares at it, just completely lost in that moment. This awe, awe, ah, and tears. Thank you.
Use it wisely. He gets up and starts pushing the card away without another word.
And Charles Carraris Chararis looks at the cover of the book. Wipes the sapphire blue tears from his eyes. Tries to regain at least some measure of composure, and yet at the same time, he can't. He makes his way out. Feeling. Truly feeling.
And that's where we'll end our scene. Thank you, players, for playing. Thank you, watchers, for watching. We'll see you next time.